In the quiet suburbs of Pennsylvania, where manicured lawns stretched like emerald carpets and picket fences stood as silent sentinels, there lived a woman named Amy Matthews. Her story was one of unwavering devotion, a testament to the depths of a mother's love, and a journey that would test the very limits of her strength and resilience. Amy's world revolved around her son, Josh, a young man in his late 20s whose life had been irrevocably altered by a tragic car accident years before. The collision that shattered bones and severed nerves had left Josh paraplegic, confined to a wheelchair, and dependent on round-the-clock care. But for Amy, the accident had done more than change her son's physical capabilities. It had reshaped her entire existence, molding her into a tireless caregiver, a fierce protector, and a beacon of hope in what often felt like an ocean of despair. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains of their modest home, Amy would rise, her body weary but her spirit undimmed. The routine that followed was a choreography of love and necessity, a dance she had perfected over the years. With gentle hands and a tender touch, she would help Josh navigate the challenging terrain of his daily life. From the mundane task of brushing teeth to the more intimate act of bathing, Amy approached each moment with a grace that belied the physical and emotional toll it exacted. The Matthews household was a fortress of care, equipped with an array of medical supplies and adaptive equipment. Nurses and caregivers came and went, their presence a necessary concession to the realities of Josh's condition. Yet Amy, driven by an unshakable belief that a mother's touch was the most potent medicine, insisted on managing the lion's share of Josh's care herself. It was more than a duty. It was her calling, her purpose, the very air she breathed. As the years passed, Amy's world contracted, focusing with laser-like intensity on Josh's needs. Her career, once a source of personal fulfillment, became a distant memory, sacrificed on the altar of maternal devotion. Friends drifted away, unable to penetrate the protective cocoon she had woven around her and Josh. Even her own health began to falter, the constant physical demands and sleepless nights etching lines of exhaustion on her once youthful face. But in Amy's eyes, these were not sacrifices at all. They were offerings, freely given, born of a love so profound it defied explanation. In Josh's smile, in the warmth of his hand in hers, in the quiet moments of connection that punctuated their days, Amy found a purpose that transcended personal ambition or social niceties. Her love was a shield, she believed, strong enough to ward off the slings and arrows of a world that could be cruel to those who were different. Yet, as time marched on, subtle changes began to creep into their carefully constructed world. Josh, once a beacon of positivity despite his circumstances, grew distant and irritable. His eyes, which had always held a spark of life and humor, now often seemed clouded with unspoken thoughts. At first, Amy attributed these changes to the natural frustrations of his condition. After all, who wouldn't have moments of despair when faced with such monumental challenges? But as days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, a nagging feeling began to take root in Amy's heart. It was more than just mood swings or bad days. There was a tension in the air, an undercurrent of unease that she couldn't quite place. Josh's interactions with his caregivers became stilted, his responses clipped and guarded. Amy found herself watching more closely, her instincts on high alert, searching for clues to unlock the mystery of her son's changing demeanor. Sleepless nights became Amy's new norm, her mind racing with concerns and questions. Was Josh in pain that he wasn't sharing? Had she missed some crucial detail in his care? Or was there something more insidious at play, something happening in the moments when she wasn't by his side? The what-ifs and maybes swirled in her thoughts like leaves caught in an autumn wind, relentless and unceasing. It was during one of these restless nights that Amy made a decision that would alter the course of their lives. With trembling hands and a heart heavy with both hope and fear, she installed security cameras throughout their home. She told herself it was for Josh's safety, a precautionary measure to ensure his well-being. But deep down, in the quiet corners of her soul where truth resided, Amy knew she was searching for answers to questions she dared not voice aloud. The days that followed were a study in anticipation and dread. Amy went about her routine as usual, tending to Josh with the same care and attention she always had. But her eyes would often drift to the hidden cameras, wondering what secrets they might reveal when she reviewed the footage. It was a burden she carried alone, not wanting to worry Josh or betray the trust of the caregivers who had become an integral part of their lives. When the moment finally came for Amy to sit down and review the footage, she did so with a mixture of trepidation and determination. The soft glow of the computer screen illuminated her face as she began to watch, expecting to see nothing more than the mundane routines of daily care. But what unfolded before her eyes left her frozen in shock, her world tilting on its axis as reality crashed in around her. There, captured in stark digital clarity, was a scene that shattered Amy's trust and broke her heart. One of Josh's longtime caregivers, a woman Amy had come to consider almost family, was verbally mistreating her son. The caregiver's face, twisted with impatience and frustration, spewed forth a torrent of hurtful words when Amy wasn't in the room. Josh sat silently, his expression a mask of resignation and hurt, powerless to defend himself against the emotional assault. The betrayal cut deep, a knife to Amy's very soul. How long had this been happening? How many times had Josh endured such treatment, suffering in silence while she remained oblivious? The questions swirled in her mind, each one a fresh wound, each one a damning indictment of her failure to protect the person she loved most in the world. With hands shaking from a mixture of rage and grief, Amy immediately removed the caregiver from their home. But the damage had already been done. The trust that had been the foundation of their carefully constructed world had been shattered, leaving both Amy and Josh reeling in its wake. In the days that followed, a heavy silence settled over the Matthews household. Amy moved through her tasks mechanically, her mind constantly replaying the footage she had seen. Josh, too, seemed more withdrawn than ever, the weight of his unspoken pain evident in every gesture, every averted glance. It was clear that a conversation was needed, one that had been long overdue. Gathering her courage, Amy sat down with Josh, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. As she gently broached the subject, the floodgates opened, and Josh's pain poured forth in a torrent of words and tears. He admitted that he had been aware of the mistreatment, but had chosen to remain silent. His reason, when revealed, struck Amy to her core. Josh hadn't wanted to burden her with more stress, knowing how much she already sacrificed for him. In that moment, Amy felt a wave of guilt wash over her so powerful it threatened to sweep her away. Had her determination to care for Josh, her insistence on being his primary caregiver, inadvertently created an environment where he felt he couldn't speak up about his own suffering? As they wept together, the full weight of the situation came crashing down upon them. Josh had been suffering in silence, bearing not only the physical challenges of his condition, but also the emotional trauma of mistreatment. And Amy, for all her vigilance and love, had missed the signs that had been right in front of her. In that raw, vulnerable moment, both mother and son realized that their bond, while built on a foundation of love, had become so focused on survival and physical care that they had neglected to nurture their emotional connection. They had become so accustomed to their roles, Amy as the tireless caregiver, Josh as the grateful recipient, that they had lost sight of the deeper, more complex relationship that existed between them. Amy apologized, not for what she had done, but for what she had failed to see. Her words, choked with emotion, were a balm to Josh's wounded spirit. In turn, Josh opened up about the fears and frustrations he had been harboring, the sense of helplessness that had gnawed at him, and the love and gratitude he felt for his mother, despite it all. Together, they made a vow to prioritize not only Josh's physical care, but his mental and emotional well-being moving forward. It was a promise to communicate more openly, to create space for honest dialogue, and to recognize that true care encompassed more than just meeting physical needs. The road to rebuilding trust and reshaping their relationship was not an easy one. Amy threw herself into the task of finding a new caregiver, someone who would treat Josh with the respect and dignity he deserved. She interviewed candidates tirelessly, scrutinizing references and background checks with a newfound vigilance. Her goal was not just to find someone competent, but someone who understood the sacred trust they were being given. Recognizing that they both needed help to process the trauma they had experienced, Amy also sought out therapy for herself and Josh. It was a step that required courage, an admission that some wounds were too deep to heal on their own. The sessions were often difficult, dredging up painful memories and forcing both of them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their relationship. But as the weeks turned into months, something beautiful began to emerge from the ashes of their pain. Their relationship, while always loving, took on a new depth and richness. They learned to communicate more openly and honestly, to express needs and fears without judgment or hesitation. Josh, emboldened by the knowledge that his voice mattered, began to take a more active role in decisions about his care. Amy, for her part, learned to listen not just with her ears but with her heart, attuned to the nuances of Josh's emotions in a way she never had before. This new chapter in their lives brought with it a series of revelations. Amy realized that in her fervent desire to protect Josh, she had inadvertently isolated him, creating a world so small that it had become stifling. Her intentions had been pure, but the effect had been to limit Josh's opportunities for growth and independence. With this realization came change. Amy began to seek out ways to expand Josh's world, to introduce new experiences and connections that would enrich his life. She researched adaptive technologies and therapies that could enhance his independence, determined to empower him in whatever ways she could. Josh, too, underwent a transformation. As he regained confidence in expressing his needs and desires, he began to rediscover parts of himself that had long been dormant. He explored new interests, connected with online communities of individuals facing similar challenges, and even began to contemplate ways he could contribute to the world around him. Together, they built a new routine, one that included more joy, laughter, and mutual understanding. They set aside time each day not just for care tasks, but for genuine connection. Sometimes it was as simple as sharing a favorite TV show or discussing a book they had both read. Other times it involved deeper conversations about their hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. As their relationship evolved, so too did their interactions with the world around them. Word of what had happened to Amy and Josh spread through their local community, and people rallied around them in a show of support that left both mother and son overwhelmed with gratitude. Friends and neighbors who had once admired Amy's strength from afar now stepped forward to offer tangible help. Meals appeared on their doorstep. Offers to run errands or provide companionship came pouring in. It was a revelation to Amy, who had grown so accustomed to shouldering every burden alone, that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, but a testament to the strength of community. A local caregiver network, moved by their story, reached out to help Amy find new, compassionate professionals who specialized in patients like Josh. These individuals brought not just expertise, but a genuine commitment to treating Josh with dignity and respect. Their presence in the Matthews household brought a renewed sense of security and peace of mind. Josh, too, flourished in this new, more open environment. Through support groups and adaptive sports programs, he connected with peers who understood his challenges firsthand. For the first time in years, he found himself forming friendships based not on pity or obligation, but on shared experiences and mutual understanding. As both Amy and Josh healed, they discovered strength not just in each other, but in the kindness and empathy of those around them. Their home, once a fortress of isolation, became a hub of warmth and activity. Laughter, once a rare sound within those walls, now echoed through the rooms with increasing frequency. The transformation wasn't just emotional, it was palpable in the very atmosphere of their home. Amy, with the encouragement of Josh and their new support network, began to rediscover some of the passions she had set aside years ago. She took up painting again, finding solace and expression in the sweep of a brush across canvas. She joined a book club, relishing the intellectual stimulation and social connection it provided. Josh, inspired by his mother's example, began to explore new avenues for personal growth and fulfillment. He took online courses, expanding his knowledge and skills in areas that interested him. With the help of adaptive technology, he even started a small blog, sharing his experiences and insights with a growing audience of readers who found hope and inspiration in his words. Their journey of healing and growth didn't erase the challenges they faced. Josh's physical condition remained a daily reality, requiring constant care and attention. But the way they approached these challenges had fundamentally shifted. Where once there had been resignation, now there was determination. Where fear had lurked, hope now bloomed. As months passed, Amy and Josh found themselves standing on the porch of their home, looking out at a future that, while still uncertain, felt full of possibility. The bond between them, once strained by silence and unspoken pain, had transformed into something even stronger, a relationship of mutual respect, open communication, and deep, abiding love. Amy realized that her role had evolved. She was still Josh's caregiver, still his fiercest advocate and protector. But she was also his partner in this journey of life, supporting his dreams and ambitions as much as his physical needs. She understood now that caring for herself, nurturing her own interests and relationships, was not selfish, but essential. It allowed her to be present for Josh in a way that was sustainable and truly nurturing. Josh, for his part, had discovered a new sense of purpose. He no longer saw himself solely as a recipient of care, but as an individual with the power to contribute to his community and impact the lives of others. Whether through his writing, his advocacy for disability rights, or simply the warmth of his friendship, Josh had found ways to reach out beyond the confines of his physical limitations and touch the world around him. Together, they faced the future with a newfound sense of optimism. They understood that the road ahead would still have its challenges. There would be difficult days, setbacks, and moments of frustration. But they no longer had to face these obstacles alone. They had each other, strengthened by honest communication and mutual understanding. They had a community that had rallied around them, offering support and connection. And they had the resilience that comes from having faced adversity and emerged stronger on the other side. Amy had always thought that her role was to protect Josh from the world, to shield him from its harshness and unpredictability. But now she realized that her greatest gift was in empowering him to step out into that world, to engage with it on his own terms. She saw that true love wasn't about creating a perfect, isolated bubble, but about providing the strength and support needed to face life's challenges head-on. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Amy and Josh shared a moment of quiet reflection. The journey that had brought them to this point had been long and often painful, but it had also been transformative, revealing depths of strength, love, and resilience they never knew they possessed. In that moment of peace, as the day's light faded and the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, both mother and son felt a profound sense of gratitude. They were grateful for each other, for the love that had sustained them through their darkest hours. They were grateful for the community that had embraced them, showing that no one has to face life's challenges alone. And they were grateful for the hard-won wisdom that had come from their struggles, the understanding that true strength often lies in vulnerability, that healing is a journey rather than a destination, and that love, in its purest form, is about empowerment rather than protection. As they turned to go back inside, Amy's hand resting gently on Josh's shoulder, they both knew that whatever the future might hold, they would face it together. Their story was far from over. In many ways, they felt it was just beginning. With open hearts and minds, they were ready to write the next chapters, not just as mother and son, but as two individuals bound by love, respect, and a shared journey of growth and discovery. The night settled around their home, a gentle blanket of darkness that promised rest and renewal. Inside, the warm glow of lights and the soft sounds of life continued, a reminder that in this house hope had taken root and flourished. Amy and Josh's story had become more than just a tale of caregiving. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of honest communication, and the transformative nature of love that adapts, grows, and strengthens in the face of adversity. As they settled into their evening routine, there was a lightness in their interactions, a joy that bubbled up unexpectedly in shared jokes and gentle teasing. The weight of their past struggles hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined them. Instead, it had become a part of their shared history, a testament to their strength and a reminder of how far they had come. Amy busied herself in the kitchen, preparing a simple but nourishing dinner. The clatter of pots and pans mingled with the soft strains of music playing from the living room, where Josh had set up his laptop. He was engrossed in editing his latest blog post, his brow furrowed in concentration as he carefully chose each word. As the aroma of herbs and spices filled the air, Amy found herself pausing, wooden spoon in hand, to watch Josh work. The sight of him so focused, so engaged in a task that brought him fulfillment, filled her heart with a warmth that no words could adequately describe. It was moments like these, ordinary yet profound, that reinforced the rightness of their new path. "Hey, Mom," Josh called out, breaking her reverie. "Can you come take a look at this paragraph? I'm not sure if I'm getting my point across clearly." Amy smiled, wiping her hands on a dish towel as she made her way to him. "Of course, honey. Let me see what you've got." As she leaned over Josh's shoulder, reading the words on the screen, Amy marveled at how naturally they had fallen into this new dynamic. Gone were the days when she would have hesitated to offer an opinion, afraid of overstepping or undermining Josh's independence. Now, their collaboration felt effortless, a dance of ideas and mutual respect. They spent the next few minutes discussing the blog post, Amy offering suggestions, and Josh considering them thoughtfully. Their conversation flowed easily from the article to other topics: a documentary Josh had watched earlier, a funny meme Amy had seen online, plans for the weekend. As they talked, Amy finished preparing dinner, and soon they were seated at the table, savoring the meal and each other's company. The conversation continued, punctuated by comfortable silences and shared smiles. It struck Amy how these simple moments, once overshadowed by the constant weight of caregiving, had become the highlights of her day. After dinner, as they settled in for a quiet evening, Josh surprised Amy by asking if she would read to him. It was something they used to do when he was younger, a tradition that had fallen by the wayside as the years passed and Josh's care became all-consuming. Touched by the request, Amy selected a book from the shelf, a collection of short stories they both loved. As she began to read, her voice soft and melodic in the quiet room, she felt Josh relax beside her. The words flowed between them, weaving a cocoon of comfort and connection. In that moment, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of home, yet experiencing them in a new way, Amy felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She realized that this quiet evening, this simple act of reading together, was the culmination of all their struggles and triumphs. It was proof that love, when nurtured and allowed to grow, could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. As the night deepened and stars twinkled outside their window, Amy and Josh remained wrapped in their bubble of contentment. The challenges of the past hadn't disappeared, and they knew that tomorrow would bring its own set of obstacles. But for now, in this moment, they were simply a mother and son, sharing a story and a connection that transcended words. The soft glow of the reading lamp cast warm shadows around the room, creating an intimate atmosphere that seemed to hold time at bay. Amy's voice, steady and soothing, continued to bring the stories to life, while Josh listened intently, occasionally interjecting with a comment or question that sparked a brief discussion before they returned to the narrative. As she read, Amy found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The path had been far from easy, marked by moments of despair, fear, and overwhelming fatigue. Yet it had also been illuminated by countless instances of love, resilience, and unexpected joy. She thought about the early days after Josh's accident, when every moment had felt like a battle against despair. She remembered the sleepless nights, the constant worry, the feeling of being utterly alone in her struggle to provide the best care for her son. Those memories, once so sharp they could cut, now felt distant, like scenes from another life. In their place were new memories, still forming, but already precious. The first time Josh had laughed, really laughed, after months of subdued smiles. The day they had ventured out to a local park, Josh reveling in the fresh air and open spaces after so long confined to their home. The proud moment when Josh had published his first blog post, his words touching lives far beyond the walls of their house. As Amy turned the page, she caught Josh's eye and saw reflected there the same contentment she felt. It was more than just enjoyment of the story. It was a shared understanding of how far they had come and an appreciation for the simple pleasure of being together, unburdened by the weight of unspoken fears or resentments. The stories in the book ranged from humorous to poignant, each one sparking a different reaction. Sometimes they would pause, discussing a character's motivations or relating the plot to their own experiences. Other times they simply let the words wash over them, lost in the imagery and emotions evoked by the author's skill. As the evening wore on, Amy noticed Josh's eyelids beginning to droop. She softened her voice, letting the cadence of her words become more soothing. It reminded her of when he was a child, how she would read to him until he drifted off to sleep, safe and secure in the knowledge of her presence. Finally, as she finished the last story in the collection, Amy looked over to find Josh fast asleep, a peaceful expression on his face. Carefully, so as not to disturb him, she set the book aside and adjusted his position to ensure he was comfortable. For a long moment, Amy sat there, watching the gentle rise and fall of Josh's chest as he slept. In the quiet of the night, she felt a surge of emotion so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. It wasn't sadness or fear that moved her, but an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love. She thought about the countless nights she had spent watching over Josh, driven by worry and the need to ensure his safety. Now, as she looked at him, she saw not just her son who needed care, but a strong, resilient young man who had faced unimaginable challenges with grace and courage. Silently, Amy made her way to the window, gazing out at the star-filled sky. The world outside seemed vast and full of possibilities, no longer the threatening place she had once perceived it to be. She realized that in learning to trust others, the new caregivers, their supportive community, and most importantly Josh himself, she had rediscovered her own strength and resilience. As she turned back to look at Josh, a smile played on her lips. Tomorrow would bring its own set of challenges, but she no longer feared them. They would face whatever came their way together, with open hearts and the knowledge that they were surrounded by a network of support and love. Quietly, Amy began to prepare for bed, moving through the familiar routines with a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. As she settled into her own bed, the sounds of the house settling around her, she felt a profound sense of contentment. Her last thoughts before drifting off to sleep were not of worry or to-do lists, but of the simple joys they had shared that evening. The laughter over dinner, the connection forged through shared stories, the comfortable silences that spoke volumes about their renewed bond. As sleep claimed her, Amy's heart was full. She and Josh had weathered storms that would have broken lesser spirits, and had emerged not just intact, but stronger and more closely bonded than ever before. Whatever the future held, she knew they would face it together, their love a beacon guiding them through both calm seas and turbulent waters. The night deepened, wrapping the Matthews home in a blanket of tranquility. Inside, mother and son slept peacefully, their dreams untroubled by the worries that had once plagued their nights. As the first light of dawn began to creep across the sky, it brought with it the promise of a new day filled with possibilities. Amy stirred first, her body instinctively attuned to the rhythms of caregiving even after all these years. But as she blinked away the remnants of sleep, she realized there was no urgent need to rush. The panic that had once accompanied her waking moments had been replaced by a calm anticipation for the day ahead. She allowed herself a few extra minutes in bed, savoring the quiet of the early morning. Through the partially open door, she could hear Josh's steady breathing from the next room, a sound that had once filled her with anxiety, but now brought comfort. It was a reminder of his presence, his strength, and the bond they shared. As Amy finally rose and began her morning routine, she moved with a sense of purpose that was both familiar and new. The tasks of caregiving were still there, medications to be prepared, equipment to be checked. But they no longer dominated her thoughts or defined her day. Instead, they were simply part of the tapestry of their life together, woven in among moments of joy, connection, and personal growth. She paused at Josh's door, listening for signs that he was waking. There was a time when she would have rushed in, eager to start the day's care routine. Now she waited, respecting his privacy and independence. It was a small gesture, but one that spoke volumes about how their relationship had evolved. When she heard Josh stirring, Amy knocked softly before entering. "Good morning, sunshine," she said, her voice warm with affection. "How did you sleep?" Josh's response was accompanied by a smile that reached his eyes, a sight that never failed to fill Amy's heart with joy. "Morning, Mom. I slept great. Must have been all that reading last night. As they went through their morning routine, there was an easy banter between them. They discussed plans for the day. Josh had a physical therapy appointment, and Amy was thinking of trying a new recipe for dinner. The conversation flowed naturally, punctuated by laughter and the occasional playful debate. While helping Josh with his morning exercises, Amy found herself marveling at his determination. Every movement, no matter how small, was approached with focus and perseverance. She remembered a time when these sessions had been fraught with frustration and tears. Now, they were often filled with conversation and shared goals. "You know," Josh said between sets, "I was thinking about trying to join that adaptive sports league we heard about. What do you think?" Amy felt a momentary flicker of fear, an old instinct to protect, to shield Josh from potential disappointment or harm. But she pushed it aside, recognizing it for what it was, a remnant of their past struggles, not a reflection of their present reality. "I think that's a wonderful idea," she said, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. "Why don't we look into it together after your therapy session?" The smile that lit up Josh's face was all the confirmation Amy needed that she had made the right choice. It was another step forward, another way for Josh to expand his world and pursue his passions. As the morning progressed, their home came alive with activity. The air was filled with the aroma of coffee and toast, the sound of the radio playing softly in the background, and the gentle hum of conversation. It was a far cry from the tense, silent mornings of the past. While Josh checked his emails and responded to comments on his blog, Amy found herself with a moment of unexpected free time. In the past, such moments would have been filled with worry or a frantic attempt to get ahead on chores. Now she chose to use it for herself, picking up the sketchpad she had recently started using again. As she sat by the window, pencil in hand, Amy found her gaze alternating between the view outside and Josh, engrossed in his work at the computer. She began to sketch, her strokes hesitant at first, but growing more confident as she continued. The scene that emerged on the paper was simple, yet powerful. A portrait of their living room, with Josh at its center, surrounded by the symbols of his growing independence and their shared life. It wasn't a masterpiece by any means, but as Amy looked at the completed sketch, she felt a sense of accomplishment and joy. It was more than just a drawing. It was a snapshot of their new reality, a visual representation of how far they had come. "Hey, Mom," Josh called out, breaking her reverie. "Can you come look at this email? I think it's from that support group coordinator we met last month." Amy set aside her sketchpad and moved to Josh's side, ready to offer her input and support. As they read the email together, discussing the possibilities it presented, Amy was struck by the ease of their interaction. There was no trace of the guilt or resentment that had once colored their conversations. Instead, there was mutual respect, shared excitement, and a deep, abiding love. As the morning gave way to afternoon, Amy and Josh prepared to leave for the physical therapy appointment. The process of getting ready, once a source of stress and frustration, now moved smoothly, each of them knowing their role and working in tandem. As they made their way out of the house, the sun warm on their faces and a gentle breeze rustling the leaves, Amy felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. The world outside their door, which had once seemed so daunting, now felt full of promise and opportunity. She looked at Josh, his face animated as he talked about his plans for the week, and realized that this moment, this life they were building together, was everything she had ever hoped for, even if it looked nothing like what she had once imagined. As they set off down the street, their laughter mingling with the sounds of the neighborhood coming to life around them, Amy knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their bond, tested by fire and strengthened by love, was unbreakable. And in that knowledge, she found a peace and joy that she had once thought impossible. The day stretched out before them, full of possibilities and potential. It was just another day in their life together, but to Amy, it felt like a gift, a reminder of how far they had come and a promise of all that was yet to be. With Josh by her side and a community of support around them, Amy knew that they were ready for whatever the future might hold. Their journey was far from over. In many ways, it felt like it was just beginning. As the Matthews family ventured out into the warm afternoon sun, their journey was far from over. In fact, it felt as though they were stepping into a new chapter of their lives, one filled with hope, resilience, and endless possibilities. Chapter 7. A New Dawn. The physical therapy clinic bustled with activity as Amy and Josh arrived for his appointment. The receptionist greeted them with a warm smile, a stark contrast to the clinical detachment they had often encountered in the past. It was a small detail, but one that spoke volumes about how far they had come in their journey. As Josh went through his exercises under the watchful eye of his therapist, Amy found herself engaging in conversation with another caregiver in the waiting room. There was a time when she would have remained silent, lost in her own worries and isolated by the weight of her responsibilities. Now she found herself sharing stories, exchanging advice, and even laughing at the shared challenges they faced. "It's not easy, is it?" the other woman said, her eyes filled with understanding. "But it's worth it." Amy nodded, feeling a surge of emotion. "It is. And it gets better, even when you think it can't." As she spoke those words, Amy realized how true they were. The path they had traveled had been fraught with obstacles, but each challenge had made them stronger, more resilient. She thought back to the darkest days, when hope had seemed like a distant memory, and marveled at how far they had come. When Josh emerged from his session, there was a light in his eyes that Amy had come to recognize as determination. "The therapist thinks I'm making real progress," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "She mentioned that I might be ready to try some new adaptive equipment soon." Amy felt a familiar flutter of anxiety at the thought of change, but she pushed it aside. "That's wonderful, honey. We should celebrate." And celebrate they did. On the way home, they stopped at their favorite ice cream parlor, a small indulgence that once would have seemed frivolous, but now felt like a well-deserved treat. As they sat outside enjoying their ice cream and the warm sunshine, Amy couldn't help but notice how at ease Josh seemed in public now. There was a time when outings had been rare, fraught with logistical challenges and the weight of strangers' stares. Now Josh chatted easily with the server, laughed at a joke from a passing child, and seemed entirely comfortable in his own skin. It was a transformation that had happened so gradually Amy had almost missed it, but seeing it now filled her heart with pride and joy. As they made their way home, Josh brought up the Adaptive Sports League again. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice thoughtful. "I'd like to give it a try. Not just for the physical benefits, but I think it would be good to connect with other people who understand what it's like." Amy nodded, understanding the unspoken part of his statement. As close as they were, there were aspects of Josh's experience that she could never fully comprehend. The idea of him finding a community of peers, of forging friendships based on shared experiences, was both exciting and a little scary. "I think that's a great idea," she said, pushing down the small voice of fear that tried to rise up. "Why don't we look into it this evening? We can see what options are available and what might work best for you." The smile that lit up Josh's face was all the confirmation Amy needed that she had made the right choice. It was another step forward, another way for Josh to expand his world and pursue his passions. Back at home, they settled into their evening routine with a sense of comfortable familiarity. As Amy prepared dinner, she could hear Josh in the living room, his voice animated as he talked on the phone with a friend from his online support group. The sound of his laughter drifted into the kitchen, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Over dinner, they discussed their plans for the coming weeks. Josh was excited about a new series of blog posts he was planning, focusing on accessibility issues in their community. Amy shared her thoughts about possibly taking an online course in art therapy, something she had been considering for a while. "You should definitely do it, Mom," Josh said, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "You've always had a talent for art, and I think it could really help people." Amy felt a rush of warmth at his encouragement. There was a time when the idea of pursuing anything for herself would have seemed impossibly selfish. Now she understood that taking care of herself, nurturing her own interests and growth, was not just acceptable but necessary. It made her a better caregiver, a better mother, and a happier person overall. As they cleared the table together, Josh insisting on helping despite Amy's initial protests, they fell into a comfortable silence. It was broken only by the soft clink of dishes and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. "You know," Josh said suddenly, his voice thoughtful, "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through, all the ups and downs, the hard times and the good ones." Amy paused, sensing the importance of the moment. "Oh?" she said softly, encouraging him to continue. Josh nodded, his eyes meeting hers. I want you to know how grateful I am. Not just for all you've done for me, but for how you've grown, how you've let me grow. I know it hasn't been easy." Amy felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were tears of joy and pride rather than sadness. "Oh, honey," she said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "You've been just as strong, just as brave. We've come through this together." As they finished cleaning up, Amy was struck by how natural it all felt. The rhythms of their life together, once so fraught with tension and unspoken fears, had evolved into something beautiful and harmonious. It wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still days when the weight of their situation felt heavy, but it was real, and it was theirs. Later that evening, as they sat together in the living room, the soft glow of lamps creating a cozy atmosphere, Amy found herself reflecting on their journey. She thought about the scared, overwhelmed woman she had been in the early days after Josh's accident, and marveled at how far she had come. She looked at Josh, engrossed in researching the Adaptive Sports League on his tablet, and saw not just her son who needed care, but a strong, resilient young man who had faced unimaginable challenges with grace and courage. He had grown in ways she could never have predicted, finding his voice and his purpose despite the obstacles in his path. As if sensing her gaze, Josh looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mom, I think I found a league that might work. Want to take a look?" Amy moved to his side, and together they pored over the information. As they discussed the possibilities, the potential challenges, and the exciting opportunities, Amy felt a surge of hope and anticipation. This was what she had always wanted for Josh. Not just survival, but a life filled with purpose, connection, and joy. As the night wore on and Josh prepared for bed, Amy found herself with a moment of solitude. She stood by the window, gazing out at the star-filled sky, and felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The world outside their door, which had once seemed so threatening, now felt full of promise and opportunity. She thought about the many people who had become part of their journey, the compassionate healthcare professionals, the supportive community members, the friends both old and new who had rallied around them. Their circle had expanded, bringing with it new perspectives, new support, and new reasons to hope. Amy's thoughts drifted to the future, not with fear as they once had, but with a sense of cautious optimism. She knew there would still be challenges ahead. Josh's condition was a reality they would always have to navigate. But she also knew that they had the strength, the resilience, and the love to face whatever came their way. As she turned away from the window, her gaze fell on the family photos lining the wall. There were old pictures, Josh as a carefree child, the family in happier times before the accident, but also newer ones. Josh at a recent community event, his smile radiant. The two of them at the beach last summer, Josh's wheelchair leaving tracks in the sand. Each image told a story of perseverance, of love, of a life fully lived despite the obstacles. Amy's eyes lingered on a particular photo, taken just a few months ago. It showed her and Josh, heads bent together, laughing at some shared joke. What struck her was not just the joy evident in their expressions, but the ease, the comfort, the deep connection that radiated from the image. It was a snapshot of their new reality, a visual representation of how far they had come. As Amy prepared for bed, going through the familiar routines of checking on Josh and ensuring everything was set for the night, she felt a sense of gratitude so profound it brought tears to her eyes. It wasn't that their life was perfect, far from it. There were still difficult days, still moments of frustration and fear, but those challenges no longer defined them. Instead, They were threads in the rich tapestry of their life together, woven in among moments of joy, triumph, and deep, abiding love. Lying in bed, Amy let her mind wander over the events of the day. The easy morning routine, the productive therapy session, the simple pleasure of ice cream in the sunshine. The evening spent planning and dreaming for the future. Each moment, once taken for granted, now felt like a precious gift. As sleep began to claim her, Amy's last thoughts were of hope and possibility. Tomorrow would bring its own set of challenges and joys, and she felt ready to face them. With Josh by her side, supported by their community and fortified by the strength they had found within themselves, she knew they could handle whatever life had in store. The night deepened, wrapping the Matthews home in a blanket of tranquility. Inside, mother and son slept peacefully, their dreams untroubled by the worries that had once plagued their nights. As the first light of dawn began to creep across the sky, it brought with it the promise of a new day filled with possibilities. In the quiet of the early morning, before the world fully awakened, there was a sense of anticipation in the air. It was more than just the start of a new day. It was the continuation of a journey, a story still unfolding. Amy and Josh had weathered storms that would have broken lesser spirits, and had emerged not just intact, but stronger and more closely bonded than ever before. Their path forward was not clearly defined, nor was it free from obstacles. But they faced it together, their love a beacon guiding them through both calm seas and turbulent waters. They had learned that true strength often lies in vulnerability, that healing is a journey rather than a destination, and that love, in its purest form, is about empowerment rather than protection. As the sun rose, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, it illuminated a home where hope had taken root and flourished. Inside, a mother and son slept on, unaware of the beauty unfolding outside their windows. But even in sleep, there was a sense of peace, of rightness, that permeated the air. Their story was far from over. In many ways, it felt like it was just beginning. But whatever chapters lay ahead, Amy and Josh would face them together, with open hearts, resilient spirits, and the unshakable knowledge that they were stronger together than they ever could be apart. As the new day dawned, full of promise and possibility, the Matthews home stood as a testament to the power of love, the strength of the human spirit, and the beautiful truth that even in the darkest of times, hope can bloom and flourish, transforming lives in ways once thought impossible.